I recently picked up this bandsaw from a grocery store, believe it or not. I used it when I built a pair of stairs down from our patio. It started out great. I did some angle cuts and they came out perfect. It was a revelation. A new world had arrived where weld joints are perfect. Reality quickly kicked me in the face though. When I swung it over for some square cuts, I got cruelly reminded of what I paid for it. The cuts were anything but square. But instead of rolling over, I decided to try a calibrated push to see if I could improve the squareness a bit. And the base broke at the pivoting joint. What to do? Buy a new, better quality saw? Or try to build a improved base for it? Well, you clicked this video, so you already know the answer. First, let's do some mock-up in order to determine how large of a base we need. My plan is to separate the cutting and miter motion by making the vise adjustable instead of handling the angle cuts by swinging over the pivoting joint like the original design. The idea is that both of these angles will be easier to tune if they're independent instead of dealing with compounding effects. It should also make for a more robust design. I'll use bearing blocks in order to constrain the pivoting motion, because it's easy. But it means that I will have to turn an axle in order to connect this arm to the bearings. I have neither bearing blocks or round stock on hand though. Let's get those materials in order and then we'll start with the foundation of the base. The basic idea will be a fairly substantial steel plate and then add a stiffening brim of square tubing in order to increase the rigidity and also get some height to work with. One reason why I am repairing this saw is that compared to an angle grinder, a bandsaw is way less violent. There are no sparkles, no harmful grinding dust, and the sound level is much more pleasant. It's more of an indoor compatible tool. The miter function is valuable too. In order to miter with an angle grinder, you most likely want to do one cut on each side, rotating the tube like this, instead of cutting it all in one plane. The outside and inside cuts are particularly difficult and will not end up as well as if you would use a proper mitering setup. For now, I'll just rivet the square tubing frame to the base. In the end, we might add some welds in order to really lock things together. Now we'll turn our attention to the pivoting joint. The bearings and the round stock has arrived. Here I'm using the old bandsaw stand in order to help me build its replacement, which seems both a bit poetic and a bit cruel. Over on the lathe, I chucked up the material and started turning, but watch what happened. The motor gave up on me. It blew the fuses and started to smell like an electrical fire. This was not the side project I was hoping for. Luckily, PCBWay reached out and asked if I was interested in collaborating. They are a manufacturing on-demand business and help their customers with 3D prints, custom PCBs, CNC parts, along with other manufacturing services. I submitted my CAD file on their website, and sometime later, this showed up in the mail. And I gotta say, I'm impressed. Look at it. The cost of this part was around $60, including shipping, and it's made out of 4140 alloy steel. Even if I could find a retailer to sell me some round stock in a reasonable size, I bet it would end up costing at least half of the price of this part. And while they are making your part for you, you're able to continue working on other things, speeding up your project. Anyway, if you have something that needs to be manufactured, I strongly recommend that you check them out. But does it fit, I hear you ask? Yes. Perfectly. Thanks, PCBWay. Now, with the bearing blocks, you're able to see where we're going with this, especially including the bandsaw. The location on the base, I aligned it to the left side. Because of the lean of the saw, it would give me more free space to operate the vise. When I got it where I wanted it, I marked out the location and the whole pattern very carefully. Then it was time to center punch. But not before redoing my layout, since I carefully marked it out wrong the first time around. Luckily I caught that during a sanity check. I think it's time to mount the saw to the base in order to see where this is headed. The vise is a really cheap aluminum one from the hardware store nearby. It should do the job nicely. But there's one problem. As it sits now, it won't actually cut through the material the entire way. That should be easily fixable with some spacers. I also fiddled around with the alignment. I did chase about 2-degree misalignment out of the blade. It wasn't the joint though. It was traced back to the interface between the arm and the saw itself. I used washers as shims for the 2 top screws, and that seems to have fixed it. But we don't know for sure until we've done some test cuts. After this, I decided to add some quality of life features. All of these were mounted the same way. First drilling and then using a rivet nut. This tool is very convenient when it comes to adding threads into sheet metal or other things that does not have enough thickness for tapping. I strongly recommend it. I'll leave a link in the description to the one I'm using. If you end up making a purchase, I'll earn a small commission. For the spacers, in order to get the vise to the right height, I find some square aluminum bar. Only thing I had to do was to cut the bits to length. I used my vertical bandsaw. The blade that was fitted was way too fine-toothed for the job, but I was too lazy to change it. But eventually I had to. And after that, it chewed through the aluminum very nicely. While I was in the garage, I also modified the vise in order to gain some additional clearance. Back inside, I spent a fair bit of time lining up the vise for a square and a 45-degree cut. 3D printing really shines in a situation like this. These templates helped me a lot with the positioning. After carefully marking out the holes, it was time to remove the saw in order to be able to drill properly. The positions were center punched, spot drilled, and finally brought to 14 mm with the aid of a step drill. I'll use riv nuts for the vise too, but here it's important that the nut doesn't protrude over the steel table. Therefore, I used a countersink in order to get them below the surface. Lastly, I could fasten the inserts into place. And with that, all the metal work is completed, and it's time for disassembly in order to be able to paint. Starting with the handle, then the pivot, and finally the feet. I also disassembled parts of the vise off camera. Prior to painting, I scuffed up the surfaces using Scotch-Brite, masked off areas that should remain unpainted, as well as giving everything a quick wipe off with some acetone. Painting itself went okay. As always, I used a cheaper brush, and it left some strands. The cure time between coats was about 24 hours, and I put down 2 layers. Bonus points to anyone that can tell me which color this is. Leave your answer in the comments. With everything cured, it's time for reassembly. For the feet, wheels and the handle, I use a bit of thread locker in order to prevent them from loosening due to vibrations. And then the saw was remounted. And here it is. But we're not quite done yet. I would like to do something about the exposed end of the square tubing. I used the 3D printer to make some end caps. But as you can see, one of them is quite different to the others. It's for storing a 17mm wrench for the vise fasteners. It's always nice to have the required tool near when you're working. It spares you from running around looking for it. The pocket has an embedded magnet, creating some positive retention in order to prevent the wrench from wiggling out. It was placed in the print during the printing process. Now it's about time to see what this thing can do. And of course, I forgot to press record before the first cut. The fasteners I'm currently using are about 15mm too long. Makes positioning the vise more tedious than it needs to be. Anyhow, we'll do 4 cuts, 2 45s and 2 90s, and that way we can see how it performs in both cases. And the results? It's not perfect, but it's worlds better than the original base. The gap for the 90s is about 1 millimeter, which roughly translates into 1 degree out of square. Perhaps I can dial this out with some further shimming. The 45s do look better though. The results are certainly good enough for MIG welding joints or cutting off stock to be machined. There are a few things I can think of that I would like to do to this in the future, but for now, I'm very happy with it. It will be a great addition. So, thanks for watching.